Dragon Ball Super Manga Chapter 62 has just been released and it has shown Moro's devastating capabilities. After subsuming 7-3 into himself, Moro has regained his power and more. With Vegeta's failure in quickly stopping Moro, he charges directly at him to presume his attacks. He throws a vicious punch that shatters a small mountaintop, but Moro easily evades it. Moro leaps up into the sky, Vegeta follows and attempts to attack him with a barrage of kicks. Again, Moro doesn't seem to be trying hard to evade the attack. Try as he might, Vegeta cannot seem to land a finger on this upgraded insidious goat. It soon became clear that Vegeta was trying to mimic the same technique he used against Moro a few minutes earlier. But Moro won't fall for the same mistake twice. It is important to note that 7-3's ability has a restriction of 30 minutes. The Z fighters were hoping that this same restriction would apply to Moro. They were counting on the fact that he would resume to the same form he was in when Vegeta had the upper hand, but they were sadly mistaken. Moro revealed he has all of 7-3's abilities and none of his weaknesses. The time limit has no bearing on him. Infuriated at this revelation, the Saiyan Prince throws another punch directly at Moro's chest. Within an instant, Moro disappears into a puff of smoke and immediately reemerges behind Vegeta, latching onto the back of his neck, absorbing all of his techniques. Being overwhelmed by the sheer speed, the Z fighters look on in complete shock, including Vegeta. After copying all of Vegeta's abilities, he lets go of the Saiyan and one-shots Vegeta to the ground. Now having the full knowledge of one of the Saiyan Prince's most notable attacks, the Big Bang attack, Moro decides to use it on Vegeta, which completely knocks him out. Being unimpressed by the level of power in that technique, Moro mocks the attack and calls it an ordinary energy blast. This puts the Z fighters in an even more dire position. Remember, Moro has copied every technique that Vegeta has ever learnt. This includes Force Spirit Fission. This makes fusion an impossibility, which shrinks any remaining hope in that, hopeless. Meanwhile, at Kami's lookout, Dende decides he needs to intervene before it's too late. He rushes to Earth in the hope of aiding our heroes. While he's making his way to the battlefield, Piccolo and Gohan rushes towards Moro and set their attack in full motion. Moro easily blocks it. He sends them both hurtling in two different directions. Gohan gets kicked straight up into the air and Piccolo straight into the ground. While Gohan is dazed as the force of the attack sends him flying through the air, Moro lets off dozens of energy beams directly at him. Crawling on the ground, Piccolo extends his hands around the feet of Moro, in the hopes it would hold him. Moro sends an energy blast at him. This causes Piccolo to let go. In response, Moro asks him, "Haven't you wondered why I am keeping you alive?" He goes on to say that they are his meal. While Moro is distracted by Piccolo, Gohan generates an attack similar to Gotenks and wraps it around Moro. Now bound and presumed unable to move, Piccolo shouts out, "Unleash it now, Goku!" In that instant, Goku does a warp Kamehameha, just how he did against Cell, directly in the face of Moro and releases his energy. Strangely enough, Moro was able to momentarily hold back the energy with one hand. But with a burst of revolt, Goku's SS Blue mode generates even more power into that attack and it overwhelmingly broke Moro's one-handed resistance, blowing his entire left arm off. Huffing and puffing and nearly out of energy, Goku looks on as the smoke gradually begins to clear. Moro looks down at his missing left arm and casually walks towards Goku and regenerate directly into Goku's chest with ferocious momentum, impaling Goku in the process. Everyone on the battlefield looks on in horror. Blood begins to protrude out of Goku's new deadly wound and mouth. The Saiyan collapses at the feet of Moro helplessly. The villain carelessly kicks him a few feet from him and attempts to devour his energy. Gohan, now enraged, charges again at Moro in an attempt to save his dad. Gohan directly lands blow after blow, but it had no effect whatsoever. In response, Moro easily one-shots Gohan back into the ground. While that is going on, Piccolo receives a telepathic connection with Dende. Dende tells Piccolo that he can restore everyone's energy. But before he could continue, Piccolo warned him not to give any more information telepathically. Why? Moro also has the ability to communicate telepathically. He was listening in on that short conversation. Being surprised that Dende could do such a thing, Moro saw this as a nuisance. He manifested energy and made it grow into a force field. Nothing could leave nor enter within the environment that they're in. A few moments later, Dende gets to the scene but is blocked by the force field barrier. Android 17 and 18 leaps towards Moro, but Moro shuts them down with nothing but his index fingers of energy. Piccolo looks on and tells Jocko that he's sorry for getting him into this mess. Jocko replies and says if this planet goes up in smoke he is more than willing to up in smoke with it. To that response, Piccolo was happy that the force field was put in place since nothing could escape it. Piccolo decides to kamikaze himself along with everything within the force field. But before he could generate enough power to do that, his own technique pierces his chest. The special beam cannon came from Moro. This sends Piccolo to the ground, knocking on death's door along with Goku, Vegeta, Gohan and the androids. Dende is high up in the sky looking down on the dome of the energy force field barrier. He laments and calls himself useless because try as he might, he just couldn't defend the Earth from this threat. Suddenly, a hole within the barrier opens. Dende falls right through it with a perplexed look. He tells himself, the barrier just opened up. Whis can be seen. He tells Dende, this isn't over yet, God of Earth. Meanwhile, Jocko points his galactic patrol gun at Moro as he stares him down. Moro says he has no interest in devouring Jocko's energy since it is so small. Moro raises his hand towards Jocko to destroy him. In response, Jocko begins shooting his gun. The energy from the gun seemed to have generated a much bigger impact than it should have. The dust clears and Moro says, you imbued the gun with your own energy. Jocko, now being confused by this, he realizes Moro isn't talking to him. He turns around and sees Meerus standing with a gun pointed directly at Moro. In response, Moro says, but you aren't Galactic Patrol, are you? And the chapter ends. I don't know about you but that was an awesome chapter. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to like, sub and share this video. We are Nerdlord, and we are out.